We saw Donald Trump the other day tweet that the fault of Biden was that he forced the Ukrainians to always be on the defensive, except that wasn't true. We go back to September of 2022 when the Ukrainians launched a counteroffensive against Russian positions, and the Russians basically had no military presence to speak of, just some border police, where they were driven out of the northern part of Kherson, which is north of the Donbass. Then in June of 2023, they launched another counteroffensive, and in the process, they lost between an estimated 100,000 to 200,000 soldiers in a failed counterattack that was completely planned and directed by U.S. military commanders, General Cavoli, among others, sitting in Stuttgart or Wiesbaden. Then in August 2024, Ukraine again launched another offensive into Kursk, and that led to the deaths of 80,000 Ukrainian soldiers. So what we've seen is this repeated pattern where Ukraine is incapable of mounting successful offensives and holding that territory. Russia has pushed back in every single one of those instances. And what's going on right now is what started off in February of 2022 with Russia having about 175,000 soldiers in their offensive into the start of the special military operation. And they were outnumbered about 5-1 by the Ukrainian forces. We now, 3.5 years later, have seen those numbers flip. So that Russia has right now about 650,000 trained soldiers, experienced personnel that have had a minimum 3 to 4 months of training, all on the front lines, all along the line of contact from the Sumy region in the north down to Odessa in the south. Whereas Ukraine its army is right now estimated to be about 350 to 400,000. The lopsided losses that Western propagandists continue to lie about what Russia's experienced and ignore the true cost for Ukraine. In the most recent exchange of bodies, where Russia turns over the dead Ukrainians that it has captured or taken possession of, and Ukraine does the same with Russian soldiers, Russia received 19 dead Russian soldiers. Russia, in turn, delivered 1,000 Ukrainian dead. So it's a 20-to-1 ratio. For every one Russian soldier that's dying, there are 20 Ukrainian soldiers dying. And what we see taking place, the demographic changes taking place inside Ukraine are horrific. What used to be a country of about 42 million people is now down to about 28 million. And they simply don't have the manpower. Well, the Russians have been very clear what their conditions are. Vladimir Putin laid it out on June 14th, 2024. It's been repeated ad nauseum by Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, by Maria Zakharova, the spokeswoman for the foreign ministry, by Dmitry Peskov, the spokesman for Vladimir Putin, Medvedev, the former president of Russia. And right now, Russia has said, look, the people in Crimea and Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk, and Luhansk voted to join Russia. The people in Crimea did it in 2015, or in 2014, I take that back. And the people in the other 4 oblasts did it in September 2022. They've all voted to become part of the Russian Federation. They are now, through the vote of the legislature in Russia, the Duma, they are now officially part of the Russian Federation. So those states are not going to be returned to Ukraine in any form, fashion. There's no land deal. There's no offer to, we'll give you this for that. None of that's going to happen because it is legally part of Russia. In the same sense that Donald Trump couldn't show up in Alaska and say, hey, Vladimir, I'll give you Alaska in exchange for giving back the Donbass. Not going to happen. That's number one. Number two, that there is absolutely no more NATO activity inside Ukraine, and Ukraine is never going to be part of NATO. Now, these are two demands that Russia will not compromise on. And the West, the notion that the West is going to send peacekeeping forces into Ukraine is a suicide mission. The Russians will kill them. They view that as a threat. Russia's already facing 2 Aegis batteries, one in Romania, one in Poland. The Aegis missile system normally is on a destroyer, but this time they took them off the ships, installed them on land, and the problem with them is that they are capable of firing a Tomahawk cruise missile, which can carry a nuclear warhead. So essentially, Russia is now looking at having nuclear-capable warheads on its border, one in Poland, one in Romania. That's what Russia is trying to get rid of, trying to disarm, push it back. In the same way that we would react very strongly if Russia decided to deploy nuclear missiles to Venezuela, Mexico, or Cuba. We wouldn't tolerate that for a minute either, but we seem to think we can get away with this. So there's not going to be a negotiated peace deal by December. Ain't going to happen.
I'll get you out of here on this, Larry, about the tariffs. President Trump, in the cabinet meeting yesterday, said, Zelensky's not been a good guy either. He plays that game. And then he said, willing to put tariffs against Ukraine in order to get them back to the table and make sure that they're involved in this peace process. Would tariffs work against Ukraine? As you pointed out, the population is down to 28 million. They're massively indebted to the IMF. The country is on its last legs as it stands. What would tariffs do?
Nothing. I mean, Donald Trump has it fully in his power. All he has to do is stop sending them money, stop sending them weapons, withdraw the CIA and military advisors that are in country, and also tell Zelensky that he's not going to have a visa to the United States to enjoy his property in Vero Beach. The whole notion that Trump has any leverage with using tariffs or sanctions against Russia, which he's also threatened to do, is just laughable. What we've learned in the course of the last week, and this is why I wrote the article about NATO is losing against BRICS dramatically. All of the major countries in NATO that are the major economies have a debt to GDP ratio of at least 100% or greater. What that means is every day, if you make $100, but you're spending $125, that means you're $25 in the hole. Now do that every day. Well, the next day you're $50 in the hole. Next day you're $75. Next day you're $100. And then it keeps growing. That's the United States. We're 125 to 100 debt to GDP ratio. England is a little over 100 to 100. It's 1 to 1. France is 110. What this means is they're spending more money than they can take in. Whereas there is not a single country in BRICS, none of the BRICS nations have a debt to GDP ratio that's lopsided. Instead, in Russia, it's 19%. The United Kingdom and France are both talking about having to go to the IMF for bailout loans because they are in such desperate economic straits. Not a single BRICS country is in the same position. So, and then just one over the sort of interesting tariff note on, four key examples. One, U.S. shipments of propane to China at zero. They've dropped off the table in 2025. It used to be a $4 billion industry. U.S. soybeans, which used to be we were a major supplier to China. China's cut that off. It's now buying from Brazil. Coffee, the coffee that the United States imports from Brazil, it's going to cost us a lot more because Brazil's selling it all to China now. And then yesterday you heard Donald Trump talking about, we're going to have 600,000 visas for all these Chinese students to come back. Gee, why are they doing that? Because the number of American colleges that depended upon Chinese students who paid full freight coming into the country, they're not coming anymore. And Trump has hit too late. What he was reacting to pressure he's received from all these U.S. collegiate and colleges and universities. So the whole tariff thing is backfiring on Trump. And then India has just told Trump to go pound sand, that no, we're not going to stop buying Russian oil. We're going to buy more. So the Trump foreign policy on this is just becoming a disaster.